And welcome to the second episode of the Mostly Yelling podcast. I'm your host, Greg Kennelty, and this week I've got a great interview with Dave French. Dave French is the drummer for YOB and Brothers of the Sonic Cloth, as well as the musical mastermind behind his new solo project, Semantron. And we'll get to that interview in a second, but first I wanted to touch on two pretty big news items this week, one personal and one that you all know about. The personal one is that I saw Rush at Madison Square Garden, and I am completely and totally blown away. They sounded amazing. Annika Niles could not have crushed the drums any harder, and I've got a full show review up on my Substack that I published yesterday, so if you want to go check that out, it's pretty wordy, it gets into a lot of my emotions about the show, but overall, I really, really loved it. If you haven't seen Rush on their current tour, definitely do it. And then, of course, the news that you all know about is that Tony Iommi announced his first solo album since 2005, and this first single is, really good. Jorn Landa is a massive vocalist. I'm really, really glad that he's working with Tony Iommi. I love his old band, Arc, so I'm just glad to see him back out there making a really, really big name for himself in the metal world. I know he also wrote the album alongside Iommi, so I'm really curious to hear how that shapes up. And yeah, as for this first single, it just feels like a slower, lower version of Dio-era Black Sabbath. If you haven't heard it, it's called World Alone, and you really should look this up. It's quite good. But enough about all that. Let's get to the interview with Dave French. Dave, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me today.
Thank you, Greg. Thanks a million, man. Happy to be here.
Of course. So now, let's start from the top, right? So you've got a new solo record out under the, I believe it's Semantron name. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, funny enough, I call it Semantron, but it's an old enough word that we don't know what the vowels would have actually sounded like.
No kidding.
So we know what the consonants would sound like, but the vowels have changed over time to the extent that basically Semantron is sort of like the closest guess that linguists have as to how that would have been pronounced.
So what's the origin of the word?
The Semantron is it's the heart of a beech tree, I think, traditionally, shaved into like a thick plank and then pounded with beech branches to call monks to meditation.
Oh, wow.
So it's a wooden, like a wood bell.
That's incredible. So let's start. So where did you come across that word that it resonated deeply enough with you that you wanted to name your project?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't remember where I came up with that, where I came across that word. It might have been in a Rilke poem. I'm not totally sure. I don't remember.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's just got like a weight to it, you know?
Yeah, I dig it as well. But I feel like when I first started this project, it wasn't called Semantron. I had a band for a while called the Anunnaki for many years, and it was the same kind of approach as what Semantron is, just a solo artistic outlet for me where I just kind of let everything be whatever it is. I don't ask it anything of it in terms of its genre or anything like that. I just kind of let it be what comes out, And I started that in the late 90s, Anunnaki. And I don't know, for various reasons, I kind of tired of the name, the Anunnaki. And the Semantron but even back then when I had started the Anunnaki, I was thinking of it as music that, was good. It had a bit of a meditative quality to it. Good music to make art to, I feel like was one of my goals in a way, because I was actually doing a lot of visual art back then. And so one of the core missions, I guess, of my initial solo project was to make music to be creative by. And so I think Semantron, when I found that name, and I was sort of maybe looking for a different identity for my solo project, and it just seemed to fit.
So when did this kind of start taking shape in your mind as it was presented, on the debut record?
I think that must have been about 4 or 5 years ago. And with, kind of in the moment when the oldest piece on the record that I just released, The Secrets of a Krummholz Heart, is that song Primary Planets, first song on the record. And when I came up with Primary Planets, it was just on a classical guitar and there was no accompaniment of any kind to it. But I had this massive sonic image, in my mind. The image is not the right word, but in my mind's ear, I could hear something really just very sonic and spacious. And that was the moment that I felt. It was really right at the very beginning of this collection of songs, of which initially there's 6 songs on this record, but there are 15 that I recorded, and there's basically probably another 5 to 7 of those will be another record really soon. So, or sometime next year.
Was there any, so you had written all of these at once. Was there any kind of, delineation of like, hey, these 6 songs have to be heard together and these collection of whatever other songs are something else? Or was it just kind of right, and then just realize, okay, great, I have all this material. Let me kind of pare it down and see where it goes.
Yeah, it was sort of that latter example. I had, it did take me years to get all these pieces written. They were the fruit of a lot of voyage, a lot of traveling, touring and stuff. And in fact, Piha is another song on the record, first song on side 2, and that's another really good example to explain, the way the process is. That's that piece. The seed of that piece came to me in Piha on the north end of the North Island of New Zealand, and then a few weeks later, I was in Iceland. And had been playing guitar all along, but somehow in that moment in Iceland, something came that was like a perfect next part for Piha. And then maybe months went by, and I found myself in the south of France, staying in an Airbnb between tours, and the rest of the song sort of appeared there. So Piha is this piece that was written in Piha, New Zealand, and in Iceland, and in the south of France in Montpellier. So they all are these kind of sonic journeys. And yeah, in the end, these 6 matched each other really well. And then initially I wanted to put out a different collection first and this one second, but this one just wanted to be the first record, I guess. It just seemed right. So I focused on these ones and brought them through the mix process and voila.
I get the sense that you are the type of musician as well that really kind of lets the music speak to you rather than you sort of dictating what the music will be in its final form.
I try as hard as I can to stay out of the way. It's like, it just does its thing. And if I can like get it out of the guitar without messing it up too much, without adding too much to it, I think the inspiration in those moments is what I'm trying to capture. Yeah, for sure.
Because, like you said, right? Like there's a certain magic in the spontaneity of coming up with something, beautiful or heartbreaking or whatever it is on the spot. Like you can't rehearse it, you can't capture it again, and sometimes it's just that one specific moment that it's like, it's magic. It's just magic. Music is magic.
It truly is. Yeah, and and I left a bit of guitar on each of these songs from the road. From the moment that each of these songs was created, there's some guitar on the record where that people are hearing that was recorded in a hotel or in a bus or in that Airbnb or in a friend's house. So yeah, I that's what I feel like. There's magic in that too, because whether people know it or not, they're hearing something that was, that was part of a journey.
So in a way, this record is almost like a travel journey.
It really is, yeah.
And I was listening to another interview that you did recently, and you had mentioned as a younger kid had read a lot of Jack Kerouac and stuff like that. So was that kind of influential on writing this material, like to make it sort of this running diary of just seeing the world and having different experiences?
I think that maybe the Kerouac was an inspiration for the way I live, in a sense. Maybe like the Dharma Bums. Even when I'm not, working on traveling for tours and stuff, I just love to travel and I love new experiences and I love new places and different smells and different foods. And and all of that. And I feel like that was sort of the fuel that, led me to all of these discoveries. Basically, these discoveries are like a bit sort of sonic gems from around the world, and that being out in the world has certainly been something I've been doing since I got a driver's license, and that's where the Kerouac thing comes in. Because the first thing I did when I got a car, my first summer with a car, I drove down to San Francisco to like check that scene out and just see what was going on down there. Because Kerouac had said so many cool things about it, so.
And you were coming from the Seattle area, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the places you've gone recently that have really just, opened your eyes, or, you just had a great meal or whatever it was? Because, I mean, there's so much to see and experience out there.
Let's see. That's a tough one. I've been so many places recently. The tour last summer with Steve Von Til, the European tour we did last year they're all epic tours, but that one was definitely one for the books, We got some really just, we got to play in like a 12th century castle that had been, we played in the king's chambers of this old dilapidated castle and stayed in a hotel in town that had been around for 500 or 600 years too. And one of the greatest meals I've ever had on tour was with Soundgarden. We were in, I was roadieing, I was doing bass tech work for Soundgarden for a bunch of years. And we were in Verona, Italy. And we had one of those experiences where the whole restaurant closes down and they just have this massive long table and they just keep bringing these waves of food with, wine that was tailored to the food they were bringing, and just wave after wave of, so by the end of the night, we're all just completely stuffed and totally wasted.
Right. And thinking to yourself, my God, this might have been one of the best meals I've ever had in my life.
My whole life. Yeah.
There's really just nothing better than just traveling and then just having something that you have to talk about for the next, 2 or 3 years or whatever it is. Even if it's something silly, right? I've gone to Gothenburg a few times now, and it's even if it's just like having burgers with friends, it's like, you know what, the burger was fine, but it was also the best burger I ever had because I got to hang out with wonderful people, and that's just phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, definitely traveling, especially as much as we do in the music industry, it's really easy to see how that can be really hard on people, and some people really thrive amongst a lot of travel, and I'm just kind of one of those people. I think the people a lot of people like patterns in life, and that keeps them sane. When they get to do something similar each day. When I'm in a different venue each day with a different set of problems to solve on a stage with a different crew of people and different sights and smells and tastes and languages, and I just thrive in that setting. I really, and that's why I feel like I'm the most creative on tour, and these songs come to me while I'm on tour or when I'm backpacking or something like that. It doesn't necessarily, it's not the kind of thing that comes to me when I'm at home in a pattern, locked in a pattern of going to rehearsals and, work or whatever.
So is it more like traveling, writing a bunch of music because you're just inspired by the world around you, and then once you come home, then it's time to kind of sit down, compile, decide what's going to work and how to kind of flesh the music out?
Yeah, and now that you mention it, that's a Kerouac tie, because his ex-wife said that later after his death, that he would just come home from these trips with all these notes and just like in a creative like fury and work day and night to get it out. So he would come home really inspired. And yeah, we just came home from the Fire in the Mountains festival yesterday. And as I typically do, I write on the plane. I write like constantly what's next and how am I going to go about doing it. And, I just get it really invigorated and creative on the road. And so when I get back to a place like this, back to my studio here, we just got back last night and here I am back at the studio working right now, you know.
How was
But
that?
because I'm ready to, you know. Oh, it was fucking amazing. Jeez, that festival is like no other. It's really something.
Every photo and every person that I've known that's gone to Fire in the Mountains like only has positive things to say. It seems like such an experience.
Yeah. And that Neurosis set the other night is going to be like talked about, like it's like the, you know, it's like bad brains at CBGB's 1982. It's going to be a show that's talked about for fucking ever. You know, that show that they played was legendary.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately. It was so amazing.
Dude, well, I mean, like, Thursday nights, usually I just stay up till midnight because I'm like, let's see what comes out. And first of all, you could have knocked me right the hell over immediately when I saw Neurosis released a new record. But not only did they just come back, but they managed to release maybe one of the best records of their entire career. I mean, good
For sure. Top three, man. Yeah. And that show, so I've toured with Neurosis as well. So I've literally seen over 200 Neurosis shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was such a fucking banger. I mean, Jason's still just like my favorite drummer.
Oh, he's incredible.
Dave Ed's bass playing, as I told him years ago, is my spirit animal. And they just fucking destroyed, man. And yeah, Aaron Turner, what a beast and what a perfect fit. What an amazing match and also contribution. You know, he's really added something to the band that wasn't there before, and there's nothing missing that was there before. Just amazing.
And it's great to hear Aaron kind of do something a little more, I guess, structured in a way, because his Sumac stuff is very, spontaneous and improvisational, and I love that band.
Sure.
But to hear him come back to doing, I guess post metal with Neurosis is just, I mean, it's 10 out of 10. It's perfect. Like, what else do you say, right?
Right. It really, yeah. Amazing set.
So, talking about your travels again, was there ever, kind of a standalone moment where you thought like, hold on, I can, sort of marry my love of travel with my love of music and kind of bring these two worlds together in a very artistic, expressive way?
I don't know that I thought about it in that way, but I will definitely say that. So I lived in France for some years, about 8 years. And I spent 3 of those years in the south in the town called Nîmes, which is where Caesar Augustus ruled Rome from. It's a beautiful old village, it's a small town and pretty quiet. It's kind of like going back in time. It's like, really, really laid back environment, And also musically, it's like right near there's this whole Gitane gypsy music population, and it's really near to Spain, and it's far enough away from a big town that it doesn't have like a scene, but it has a lot of musical influences because it's at this kind of convergence down there, Italy, Spain, France, North Africa. Yeah, so I feel like my time there was the time that what eventually became this Semantron sound. It was kind of where I was able to uncover that sound. I guess it was because of the lack of scene. I didn't have a lot of noise around me, and also because it's just not a, I don't know. I feel like it's less about genre in an environment like that. People are a little bit more open to just whatever they like, and that kind of gave me the freedom to just experiment sonically with what had been in my head for some time, because that was really the main hurdle, was taking what was in my mind and translating it into these instruments that I have access to and can, make noises with. So yeah, it just was a point in time where I began to, where I guess what was in my mind and my abilities began to converge.
And as far, you had brought up a really interesting point too just now about seeing, kind of local musicians performing the music that is, specific to their sort of region. Do you make it a point when you're traveling to see different bands or musicians or whatever that are, very specific to the south of France or wherever it is, that you are at that point?
Yeah, every chance I get to, I love to do just that. And even if it's in, like a dive bar in Istanbul, like something that just came to mind was just that. I was in, late night in Istanbul and, wanted to try out my please and thank you in Turkish, like teşekkür ederim. And so I went to a local dive bar and it was filled with smoke and, a bunch of crusty old folk in there. And this two-piece of a guy playing like a big Casio keyboard synth thing, playing pretty cheesy, like must have been love songs, And what a fucking experience, It's the kind of thing that you might go, wow, I don't know what the hell am I doing here? But in a setting like that, it's like, wow, this is amazing. This is super duper local, because the place wasn't empty either. There were people there for that music, and it was really unique and odd, and I love that.
Because when else are you going to experience something like that? Like you're never going to see that musician probably ever again. So you might as well sit down and listen and see what they have to say, right?
Totally. Yeah.
I recently by our house, I'm in New Jersey, and there's like this Tuvan throat singing trio that comes over from that area of the world every year and does like a like a little bit of a tour of the U.S. The Alash Ensemble, and it was probably one of the most incredible things I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, it was three guys, and it sounded like 12. It was unbelievable. So yeah, no, to see how other parts of the world are thinking about just music and tonality and tuning and all that. I mean, it's incredible. It really is.
And I love that people are keeping that alive, and not just hearing what's what's popular and wanting to do something similar to that, and which is also cool. But I think when people keep a local sound alive, that's so important and so cool to see and hear.
Absolutely. So
yeah.
I wanted to ask you about the name of the record too. Secrets of a Krummholz Heart. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think Krummholz trees are kind of shaped by punishment and long periods of kind of getting the shit kicked out of them, I guess, for lack of a better term. So,
yeah,
I assume that was sort of something that you wanted to convey with this.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I do have a genuine fondness for Krummholz trees. They're just, I do some backpacking, and when I get to the ridges, I love to go and look for the trees and take photos of them and just enjoy them. Imagine like you said, getting the shit kicked out of them. Just imagine like the years that they've spent collectively over their life under, buried under meters and meters of snow, and then they, the snow melts and storms come through and they're just blown and twisted and broken and, or partially broken, and part of the branch lives and part of the branch dies. And yeah, I think that just, I like the imagery or the image itself, just visually, but then that sort of undying, survival, but not just surviving like magnificently, like there are these trees that down below, they're the same type of tree. Let's say it's a pine or a hemlock or something. Just down below the ridge, those pines and hemlocks have a real familiar shape, but up there they're just so different. And coming through or dealing with all of that, all of the punishment and harsh conditions that they have made them these particular beautiful versions of a hemlock or of a pine. They don't look like all of the pines just as they come out of the seed and get bigger. They come out of the seed and they really like have to, get a root in the crack of a stone that's, and find a little bit of water, in the sand of the eroding mountain in that crack, and I think that's what I was getting at is like, a heart that's been, through a lot and still is unique and beautiful and not just jaded and closed,
So it's about perseverance, about openness, I
Yeah.
guess, in a way.
Yeah. Like both of those, I think is correct. Yeah. Like shining through the adversity, I guess, not just surviving it.
And in a way too, because you had brought up earlier that, this is music to create art to. And I think that's, again, kind of beautiful in a way that it's something that you can actively listen to and pick apart with all the different, layers and instrumentation and stuff like that. Or it can just be this thing that exists in the background, but kind of pushing you along to like, hey, you can make something as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I like that it's, like you said, there's a lot that you can pick apart in that. You can find a lot of details in that music. But if you turn it on and start drawing, you might just get lost in it, and just be like super focused on what you're doing and just have this sort of something that doesn't necessarily get in the way, sonically.
And then I believe you obviously had, recorded and wrote all the music. I believe you did the art, and then Nate Yacino had mixed it and Tad Doyle had mastered it, correct?
Correct.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how was that kind of handing over your material to somebody else to be mixed and mastered? I mean, obviously you're well versed in that, but you are also a studio guy, so you kind of, have that frame of reference to know, like, the deeper mechanisms of mixing and mastering.
Well, I needed it, man. I needed to hand that over to somebody, and I'm really, really happy that I had Nate to hand it over to. I think what he did was amazing, and I was sort of so deep in this in the technicals in the process that by the time I was ready to start the mix, I honestly didn't even know if it was music. I just was like, I don't know what this sounds like, if it's got anything interesting, or these songs, it's just a bunch of sounds. And when I finally handed it off to Nate, and I went there and I sat with him through the whole mix process, and I had a few suggestions, but mainly just let Nate do his thing. But when he started mixing it and I was able to just relax and like listen, I suddenly was like, oh shit, these are songs. That sounds pretty cool, Whereas I couldn't tell.
Wait a second, this is actually good.
I thought it was all right, and I really couldn't tell at that moment. And Nate just knocked it out of the park. I think that his. I also wanted Nate to mix it, one, because I love the dude, and he does just amazing work, but also he's kind of like, he's not a genre guy. He's working on the new Soundgarden record right now, that their final record from the last few years, before Chris died. And he works with Nora Jones in a production capacity, and Brandy Carlisle, and he's just like and he's a fabulous multi instrumentalist. He's just a music guy, and not like a genre specific person. I didn't want to have doom treatment necessarily for this. I wanted it to be just treated like sounds. And he did a fucking amazing job. He spent, at one point, I was listening to him work on the drums, and I got kind of, I was writing some thoughts down while I was listening to a mix, and I wasn't necessarily paying attention, but about like 30 or so minutes had gone by, and he was just working on the drum sound. And then suddenly he unmuted, and the drums were getting to this point where it like really was starting to breathe and pulse and move, and just had this extreme like character and dynamic to it. But what I didn't realize is I had just drifted off into my thoughts, and what he was working on that whole time was under the snare bottom microphone, just the bottom mic under the snare. And he had the whole kit sounding like breathing and pulsing, and it was the most. Then he unmuted the whole kit, and I was like, "Holy shit!" Like I'd never seen anything like that. Man, he did a great job with all the sounds, including the drum sounds. And then Tad knocked it out of the fucking park. I mean, sometimes people go back and forth and get like 14 different master revisions done. I didn't get any master revisions done. He sent me what he did, and I was like, wow, that sounds fucking amazing.
So, getting it mixed and mastered, like hearing the final product for the first time, I mean, what was that like? Because that must have been, like you said, right? Like you're working on it for so long, you kind of become detached from it in a way where it's this part and this part and this part. But to hear it in its final form must have been breathtaking. I mean, it's an incredible record.
It was, I was so excited when Tad sent me what he sent me. And then funny enough, like when the vinyl showed up, that was really like the final form for me. And when I put it on, it just sounded like 1976. It sounded so cohesive and so analog and so freaking cool, and Tad had deliberately mastered it for vinyl. He gave me a digital master, which is a streaming version, and the vinyl master. And yeah, I was so excited to hear it when it finally came back to me. I was just like, wow, okay, this doesn't suck.
Which is, it sounds so silly, but it's true.
Oh, yeah, it's real true.
To work on something for that long, you get to a point where you're like, this is either great or the worst thing ever. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not really sure. And then, to have somebody else work on it, you're like, oh my God, I'm actually kind of good at this. All right, great. Nice.
Totally. Man, we did this release, sort of just an anecdote related slightly to that. We did this record release show on the 10th in Seattle, and I got a band together specifically for that. And I got some great players together, and I had a local guy, Mark Bassett, play guitar on it, and a couple of guys from Seattle, which was Stuart Dahlquist on bass, and Stuart has a band called Osfa. And he was in Burning Witch. That was, and he was also an original member of Sun before they were Sun O. And he's just a wicked fucking bass player, and a player that I was introduced to through Stuart. David Lutz played keys, and my dear old friend Jed from who I've known for 30 years and been playing music with all along, flew up from North Carolina to play drums. So, and we went to Nate's studio, Nate Yassina, who mixed it. We went to his studio to rehearse, and we had 2 days, and we worked 10 or 12 hours a day. Really, really worked hard on getting that set together, and it went really well. But the first time we ran through the songs, I had this moment where I was like, oh no, this can really be a fucking disaster. It sounded so rough. I was like, oh man, I'm in
should I just cancel this now or right? Like,
have a listening party?
Shit, this is really bad. Yeah. Right. Hey, we're actually just gonna play the vinyl at the show. Never mind. Forget the band. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
We were kidding the whole time. But obviously, came together and clearly sounded great. Are you going to do any more shows of that, or is that just kind of as you create more music and things like that, you'll just kind of play whenever?
Well, no, I'm gonna go on tour with Steve Von Till. I play a few instruments in his band, so I'll be playing with him. But I'm also going to, and Six Organs of Admittance is going to be direct support for Steve. And on a few of those days, on 4 dates, I will be the first of 3. So I'll be playing a solo version of these pieces. And I'm going to do versions of them. I'm not going to try and, I'm not just going to press play and have the album music play and I'll play lead guitar and sing. I'm going to do like some sparse percussion and then loop rhythm stuff. And over the top of that, I'll play some synth with my feet and sing and play guitar. So that'll be, I've got 4 shows with Steve in August on the West Coast and in the western side of the U.S. up into Denver and stuff. And then I have some other shows that I can't announce yet. They haven't been announced, but I'll be playing in the UK in December.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I mean, because talking about, performing songs that are not necessarily how they were composed initially, I think that's really interesting because you have to then take these songs, figure out what makes them harmonically interesting or compositionally interesting or whatever the case is, and try to really pare it down. I mean, it's got to be tough.
Yeah, it's a little tough, and still a little bit at a loss of as far as how I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But let's see. It's going to be, I think my inspiration for that, or I think the way I'm thinking about it is like I saw Tom Waits in like 2004. The Mule Variations tour. I don't know if it's 2003 or 2004. And when I was living in France, and he did really drastically different versions of those songs, for the most part, and even added like sections here and there that like where there's a bridge or a breakdown that wasn't on the record that they came up with. This was just awesome, And so I'm just kind of using that as an inspiration to not worry about it. I can do whatever I want to do as long as it sounds cool, because I mean, it's, there's a few, 2 or 3 guitars on all these songs and bass and synth and drums and everything. And I'm just going to be standing there with a guitar. So it's pretty much open to interpretation. Yeah. Next year, I'm going to do some full band shows, probably on the Western US in February, where I have, some of the players that I just played with in July and, get a real band together. Which I'm excited about. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I would imagine too, it kind of takes the pressure off a little bit, in terms of doing a solo thing because, it's sort of spontaneously composed. So you lose that expectation that it's going to be exactly like the record, right?
Yeah. I honestly, for the moment, I've never played solo before yet. And so for right now, it's a little nerve wracking. I'm much more used to playing with a band and, especially February is probably the next time I'm going to get the chance to do this, to get the band together because of all the stuff I've got going on this year. But I feel more comfortable with that. Just working with a band where I just have 2 things to think about, guitar and voice, But we'll see.
Right. And everyone else is just going to do their job.
Exactly. Fucking better.
Right, or else.
No, yeah, I am really looking forward to the experience of playing solo, and see how that feels. And,
that's awesome. So I obligatory just got to ask, YOB and Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. Are there any kind of upcoming anythings with those projects?
Well, yeah, we're going in the studio pretty darn soon. YOB, we're going in the studio later this year.
Ah, very cool.
Yeah, in no time we're going in the studio.
Nice.
Yeah, we're gonna be putting their new record out early next year.
Very cool. Very cool.
Brothers of the Sonic Cloth. I'm still hopeful, man. I mean, I'm still hopeful. We talk about it every once in a while.
I'm still hopeful too. I mean,
yeah. It's if I had the time to right now, I would just instigate it. Just say like, here's the drum parts.
Dave keeps texting.
All recorded and ready to go.
Why does he keep texting us? Oh shit, he's got drums. Okay, never mind.
Exactly.
So something that I ask is just kind of the last question for everybody. What have you been listening to lately?
Something I discovered recently that I like a lot is Daisy Rickman.
I don't know what that is.
You know who Daisy Rickman is? She's from I think she's from Bristol. She's from England somewhere. I think she's from Bristol or that area, but she does a sort of dark folk thing that is just, I don't know, it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. Daisy Rickman. Let's see. Cryptic Brood. Have you heard of those cats from Germany?
I don't think so.
Mike turned me on to them. Mike Scheid turned me on to them. They're just like crazy, heavy they're, you know, definitely like a punk and metal crossover band. Super talented. They might sound like they're from the 80s, but I think they're pretty young.
Right, but they're all like 15 and kicking ass or something.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and the new that new Deaf Kids record is amazing. I mean, just fucking amazing. Brutal, scary.
You just think about sound and it just a different way. I mean, them and that Finnish band that I'm absolutely going to destroy their name, Aransi Pazuzu.
Yeah,
terrifying,
totally.
Terrifying shit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's a few things I've been checking out. And Greet is another kind of a dark folk thing that's happened and comes out of the UK. That's this guy Matthew, who's Matthew Broads. He's the drummer of the band Don Raid.
Oh,
RAY''ED.
Yeah.
Don Raid. Yeah, he's got a cool. He plays harmonium and sings, and
whoa,
that's a real cool project too. It's very folky and
I
gorgeous.
gotta check all this out. I've never heard of any of these, which is,
Yeah.
I think.
Great.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, and that's kind of why that's always something that I want to ask last is like, hey, like, introduce people to something cool that they're probably not going to come across otherwise, you know? Because we could sit here and be like, oh, Electric Wizard and Black Sabbath and whatever, but who cares, right? Like, it's
there's all those, and they're all awesome.
They're great, but everybody knows that shit. So
yeah, I have a pretty random play. My mind is random play. I like it things to go from one extreme to the other, from song to song, you know. And in fact, on the earlier incarnation of my solo project, which then was called the Anunnaki, I really kind of made those records intentionally to be like being on random play, you know. And I won't suggest anybody try and find those records because I don't really like them. And I kind of have intentionally buried them, but they were all just sort of a learning process, and I had to like do them, you know. And I feel like, especially the last one was really the precursor to this record. It just sort of was the moment where I found my sound. I feel like, you know.
Do you revisit any of that material at all? Like, do you use that for you know, stuff that you're working on now, or is that just kind of was what it was and that's it?
Yeah, it was what it was, actually. That you know, there's the possibility that I might revisit a piece or two of those in the future, but I kind of doubt it. You know, there's always just the thing is, like, recording takes a long time for me. You know, what in my process, and by the time I'm done recording something, there's already new stuff that's like dying to happen. And so, I think that next year I'll do, you know, I'll button up some of the songs that didn't make it onto this record, and they didn't make it because of the fit. It's like, in fact, a couple of them are like my favorite pieces that you know that I quote unquote like better than the ones that are on these records, on this record. I mean, but they just didn't. They weren't finding a home with you know, combined with these songs, and so I just set them aside for the next record. And so I'll probably take 3 or 4 of those songs and then add a couple of new ones that are just in the works now, and have another record next year.
Awesome. I'm already looking forward to hearing that, man. This is a really cool project, and again, this is a great record. Thank you for making it.
Thank you, Greg, man. I really appreciate it. It's excellent.
Well,
happy to hear it.
Dave, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it, man. Hopefully, you know, I'll get to see you live soon.
Awesome, man. Yeah.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to the Mostly Yelling podcast this week. Be sure to check out all previous episodes on all streaming services, as well as the Podbean website. Be sure to check out the Mostly Yelling Substack, where I publish show reviews and thoughts on the goings-on in metal, as well as a weekly newsletter with all the metal news that's going on that week. And perhaps more importantly, be sure to reach out to me if you think you want to talk to me on the podcast about heavy metal or your favorite bands or anything like that. I'm pretty open to having different people on this podcast. I don't want it to just necessarily be just interviews with artists. If you like a very specific subgenre of music and you want to talk about it or anything like that, let me know. Let's see what we can work out. But in the meantime, be good to one another, listen to excellent music, and I will see you all next week.